to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. As always, you know I'm excited that you're here. Now, I hope as you listen to the show, right, you feel my passion about that word change. We're going to take that angst out of it and make it easy peasy for you. So to help you on your journey of change, I'd love for you to join my all-star community. And we meet twice a month. We talk about everything business and career related. We have a lot of fun. And the link is in the show notes if you have interest to come and play with me twice a month. Additionally, if you are loving the show, of course, I want you to share it with your peeps, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd rate and review it, I really love reading the lovely notes that you guys send me, and they mean so much to me. So again, if you can subscribe, rate, and review, always appreciated. Now, today, my motivational quote is by Charles F. Glassman. And Charles says, thoughts frame your portrait, action paints it. And I thought this was such a great quote and a reminder that we are truly the master of our thoughts and could create any future that we choose as long as there's action. Now, sometimes I feel like we give away our power because we're not really sure what that next step is or what action to take. So I know for me, sometimes I hesitate to move forward because I'm afraid, what if I make a misstep? Now, what I've learned is that there really are no missteps, especially if we actually learn from those, whatever those perceived missteps are. And the other thing I've learned is that action and movement, even if not the perfect and most direct choice, it actually moves us closer to our desired outcomes and goals. Now, I think it's all about movement and turning it into taking that action, right, or that movement and turning it into our inner wisdom. So how do we turn it into that inner wisdom? Well, I'm glad you asked. Of course, I have an amazing guest today. She's back, I think, for the third or fourth time because I just can't get enough of her. My good friend, Laurie Seymour. Now, Laurie is a quantum connection mentor, two-time international #1 best-selling author, and founder and CEO of the Baca Institute. Now, the Baca Institute is internationally known as the source for source. She helps visionary leaders and conscious business owners shift their vibration for more energy, focus, inspiration, and joy in their business as well as in their personal lives, leading to streamline project creation, implementation, and financial abundance. Sign me up. Laurie is also the host of Wisdom Talk Radio podcast. I have been a guest. I highly recommend you check that out. And she's in over 60 countries. So she is master of this conversation. So Laurie, thank you so much for being on and sharing your wisdom with us.
I always love playing with you, Connie. It's a joy. It's fun. And we get some pretty deep stuff going.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's funny. I just had a meeting with my VA this morning before our recording, and I was talking about my business, right? I've been in business for 20 years. I know you've been in business for a long time. And even though I'm sales and I'm business, there's such a spiritual inner voice, inner guidance that I've kind of used my whole life. It's been more intuitive for me, and meeting people like you, I'm able to tap and control it more. And I don't know if control is the right word, but use it more effectively and efficiently. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I actually think of inner guidance as a refinement of what people usually talk about as intuition or gut instinct. And this is taking it into a whole other dimension, really. And that's what I think our conversation will show.
So talk to me about that. Is connecting with our inner guidance the same as intuition? And if not, like where can we discern the difference?
You know, I read something recently in this amazing book called Range about intuition that I had never seen before. And he was talking about intuition being that part of us that taps into what we already know. Now, it may not be conscious, it may be on another level of our awareness, but he was talking about a chess master who visualizes moves in their head, or like that show, The Queen's Gambit.
Yes.
Who's visualizing them on the ceiling. So what she was doing was tapping into her intuition about, what would work here, what could be used. But she was able to do that because she had trained so extensively in chess and, and impossible moves. So while I had not read that before, seen that before, that idea of it being what we already know, it really made sense to me because the quantum leap that I've made in my life has been recognizing that inner guidance is actually real and it's part of our blueprint, really.
Yeah.
And we need to know how to learn how to activate it. But if we think about the quantum field and the research that's been done by the quantum physicists,
Yeah.
we look at particles, and particles don't stay the same. They don't traverse a linear path. They can leap from inside the atom to outside the atom. And in one moment, how does that happen? How can that be? And you can't plot them. You can't say, well, this is going to go from point A to point B to point C, which is often when we're trying to create something in our business,
Yeah.
how we think we have to do it. Okay, first I'm going to gather my team, and then I'm going to do the marketing, and then I'm going to do. Yes, and it's not letting that go. But the inner guidance piece of that is, how do we make the quantum leaps? How do we live in that expanded space where we don't just go from point A to point B to point C, but we make a quantum leap that is not linear, and we get to receive, we could call it guidance or information from that quantum field that is not able to be plotted on a graph. So it's like you leap from one reality, this is how I see the world, to something that's more expanded and something that's unknown. So to go back to your original question, I think of inner guidance, and I relate to inner guidance as me tapping into the unknown, that which I don't know yet. And so when I have that sensing of something, I'll say, well, how could that possibly be? That's my intellectual side. Oh, no, that's not important. That's my self-doubt side.
Yes.
All things that your listeners will probably recognize from their own experience. But if we allow that, we have that capacity to tap into that which is unknown to us, then we get to play with that. We get to be curious. We get to say, well, I had this thought and it doesn't make sense to me, but what if I don't just discount it? What if I bring it in? And I could be the researcher. I could say, okay, well, what if? And how could? And what does this mean? And part of my work, part of the teaching that I do in teaching people about how to work with their inner guidance is to teach them how to decode, to unravel those messages, if you will, that we get. And they can come in all sorts of forms. It can be, an errant thought or a picture or a feeling in your body. But how to start focusing on those, paying attention, and then decoding them. What does this mean for me?
It's such a fascinating topic when we start talking about those quantum leaps, because it's so intangible that, and I know sometimes I think, but how do I do it? Like, how do I harness that and be able to have a little bit more control of it? So it's really, I think, tapping into the synchronicities, or tapping into, like you said, that thought comes in and we push it back out. So learn to, whatever that thought is, pause for a second and say, wait, is this valuable or not? Right. That's the inner guidance coming, but we have to be able to pause and see it. So now I know you work a lot with business owners. So how does inner guidance connect in our work? And like, how do you help the business owners see those thoughts that come in and say, whoa, there's something here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I developed my most recent course, the Inner Guidance Mastery Blueprint, it was because of those kinds of questions. Like, how do I actually use this?
Yeah.
Not just what is it, but how do I make use of it? So, for example, think about your to-do list. I'm a great person to make lists of what I have to do tomorrow or the next day or the next day. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But what I've learned over the years is that, okay, I'll make my list. I don't want to forget anything. And then when I start my day, I will get quiet. I will take some time to be quiet inside myself, because that's how I start to tune into that which I don't yet know. And if I consider that I am, because each of us are part of the universe,
Yeah.
we're not separate from it.
I
So
agree.
that means that I can sense what's happening on the other side of the world if I work at that, if I focus on that. But in this case, I'm going to focus on my to-do list, and I'm going to allow that expanded perspective to be there with my to-do list. What do I really need to do first?
Mm.
And I can't tell you how many times what's happened is number 4 on my list, really jumps up to the top.
Mm.
Not because of something that I consciously know, but if I do it, some pieces fall into place, because what I'm tuning into is that expanded perspective, that expanded, or I could not say expanded, just the universe. So my person over here, that team member there, they've got their own thing going, but somehow they're playing into that. I'm picking up on that. I'm picking up on who's going to call me. Maybe it's that I'm needing to go get coffee first. Why am I needing? I mean, I've got all these things to do. Why am I needing to go get coffee? But maybe the person behind me in the line is going to say, hey, what are you about? And they're going to offer me a new speaking opportunity. Or it might be my next client. Actually, I was at a party recently and met someone who said, I really want to do this class. Yes, I will be there. And we were talking about all sorts of things. But that willingness to see it as, oh, I'm part of this whole big picture, and I don't always know everything.
Fascinating. It's part of the action that I started
Yes,
with,
yes.
right? And it's action, but it's almost not action, right? It's this dual-edged sword of to sit, kind of lean into it, and then be guided which action to take. And that creates the efficiency. So it's so funny, as you were describing this, I was thinking, I have a colleague here in Philadelphia. I'm in Jersey. She's in Pennsylvania. And she, during COVID, she was so bored. She's a doctor and psychologist. And she was so bored. And she said, I need intellectual conversation. So she started reaching out to her network and say, hey, I want to have these, she calls them quick hits. They're 10 minutes. She picks a topic. And then we just talk about, she has 4 people, her and 3 others. And we do these quick hits. So the first time I had met her, and then she offered this, and I was like, oh, and I was really busy pivoting my business. But I thought, oh, I like this topic. I think I'm going to do it. And so I said, oh, I'm in. If you have room, I'd love to be part of it. Well, I met this gentleman from the UK. Again, I don't know how she knew him. And after we connected, it was 10 minutes, but there was something about each other. And afterwards, we sent each other an email saying, hey, can we have like a coffee, a video coffee? And we met, and he's part of my all-star community now. Wow. And he's one of my favorite people in the world. And he's coming to New York, and it's just this whole synchronicity. But I hesitated that, and I thought, oh, but I like that topic. I like her. I think I want to do this. Yes. So you never know. It's those moments of, oh, I don't have time. Oh, but I like that. And that to me is that inner wisdom, because I didn't really know her, right? I didn't know what this quick hits was going to be about. So it wasn't intuition. It was the inner guidance. Was that a good example?
That's a great example, because you had to trust it. Here's the other piece. You were willing to trust, and maybe it wasn't even quite trust, because you didn't even think of it as inner guidance. It was just, oh, I'm drawn to that topic.
Yes.
And that's, it's what do we lean into? What do we feel drawn to? And if we're always focused on what's the next step from that linear perspective, we're going to miss those miracles, those special moments, those moments where the universe is tapping you on the shoulder and you're going, oh, get away.
And I could easily have done it
for you. Oh, get away.
That's right. I don't have time for this, right? That's like my favorite time. I don't have time for this. So it's interesting. All right. So now another question. You again, you work with business owners. Why would they want, like when you teach them through this mastery, why would they want to gain this inner guidance? Like, maybe a better question is like, how have you helped people like my story, right? That was an inner guidance story, but how have you helped people go from that point A to point B where they're using their inner guidance and saying, holy crap, this has helped my business with XYZ without even realizing I didn't anticipate that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think so. We know the place of pushing in business, how to push. We know being stressed.
Yes, I do.
No, I don't have enough money for that, or I don't have enough time for that.
Yes.
This is really about creating the money, creating the time, creating more clients, because we're operating in synchronicity, not in synchronicity, in sync with, in alignment with who we are and how the universe is wanting us to act. And that sounds a little far out, perhaps. It sounds a little woo-woo, but really it's about, given that the mind is nonlinear, that we are able to both receive and transmit instantaneously. So this is about, and part of my work is about raising people's frequency level. And so in raising one's frequency, you are able to transmit at a different level, and you are able then to attract to you a different level. So if you've always been attracting clients that say, oh, I wish I could do this, but I don't have enough money, it may be because of you're operating in those old ways, from those old patterns. And if you raise that frequency and you're taking some time for yourself to get quiet and to tune in, because that's part of what happens. That's one way to raise your frequency, is to take a little time. And I work with energy, so I'm there actively creating those interconnections, or opening those interconnections really for people, so that they can vibrate at a higher rate and attract to them those clients that say, oh my gosh, where have you been? I need this, I want this. And that's what starts to happen with people. They get the ideas, the solutions to problems that they were chewing on, but didn't have a way to resolve. You know, in the middle of an experience, I've had people come up with, I just saw, you know, let's say we were doing a little meditation. I just saw my brand colors. That's pretty, you know, how does that make sense? You know, another who said, oh my God, I had to stop and start writing things down because I got this whole inner experience of what my new course needs to be.
I love it. Does it happen at night? For some reason, in the middle of the night, I'll have an idea and it wakes me up, right? And I think, oh my God, please go back to sleep. But it gnaws at me, where I actually have a pen and paper next to my bed, so I could just write it down and get it out of my head. But it's phraseology sometimes, or a thought of, hey, have you looked at that? Where I'm like, oh, I don't even know what that is. So it's just weird things, Laurie, that hits me. Is that common? Like, is that the inner guide?
Yes, it is. And if you would stop saying, oh, that's weird, and start saying, thank you. I don't know what this is about. Because you're not going to right away. And part of the training that I do with people is to help them understand how to decode that, what kinds of questions to ask, how to get quiet enough inside to ask the questions like, what's the purpose of this? Or how am I to use this? Who am I needing to bring in to work with me on this? And to be able to actively then tap into the inner guidance, so it's not just in the middle of the night, that because it's more than just waiting. It's not about waiting for inner guidance. This is about learning how to use it actively, so that you know what actions to take. I loved that quote that you did in the beginning, because it's if we just sit on the top of a mountain and meditate, nothing changes.
That's right.
We're not doing anything differently. We're not addressing the problems that we see in the world.
That's right.
We're not bringing our own light to shine on things.
And everybody that's listening to the show, right? All my listeners here, but do you, and I mean that to the people listening, do you allow time to pause and just breathe and let that inner guidance in? And I have to tell you, Laurie, most times I don't. It's you wake up, you do your routine, you hit the pavement running, and it's go, 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 get it done. Sometimes like I won't go to the bathroom, and that's ridiculous. Like that is ridiculous. That's ridiculous, right? So, but here's the thing. I know people listening are going, oh, it's like, is she in my head? Because I do the same thing.
Yes.
So can everybody connect to the inner guidance? Like, is anybody unable that you've worked with? Have they ever been unable to tap into that?
I'm going to answer that in two ways, because that's a really important question, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody has this capacity. And no, not everybody will do it. And not everybody wants to do it or is open to doing it or is even interested. So when people ask me, well, who is a good client for you? It's partly, my answer is people who already know that there's something more for them. They may not know what it is. They may not have a clue what it looks like or how to get there, but something inside themselves has opened enough to know that there's more. There's another way to do things, that you don't have to just run yourself ragged or do it alone, which is what I see a lot of business owners, even people within companies. They're working on a project and they still feel like they have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Or they may have that expanded perspective and they will never say a word about it. I was a solutions engineer for 13 years. Working in the tech world. And that was between me being a psychotherapist and doing what I do now. And so because I had already been trained in this way, I brought that to that world. And I was constantly working with the engineering teams to say, well, what if we did this? Because I wasn't locked into what I already knew. And I was willing to, to step out of, not just step out of the boxes, but to step out of thinking, this is how things need to be. Because, the universe is holographic and everything is interconnected. The whole systems are interconnected. Yeah. And so that's what allows us to tap into things that we haven't had experience with before.
And I'm glad you mentioned working in an organization, because, I have a lot of corporate clients, right? So a lot of the people who listen to the show, they have careers, they're executives and they're, moving up the ladder and all of that. So this is fascinating because I find that often when I'm with my corporate clients, right, and I'm teaching them sales, and I'll say, well, why didn't you ask your manager for XYZ? And they go, oh, I didn't want to bother them. And they're almost afraid to ask for help for fear that it's going to show they don't know or they're vulnerable. And I'm like, yeah, but by not asking, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So my corporate clients that are listening, that are in careers, right? This isn't just for business owner. This is for everybody on our earth.
Yes.
If they feel stuck in their careers, this might be a way for them to open even their own personal perspective and understand what to lean into and not to try to do everything on their own. Because that's another thing. A lot of my managers, they say, well, it's just easier for me to do it on my own. But what are you leaving behind? What aren't you freeing up on your calendar so that you can make room to get promoted, because you're so bogged down with administrative or whatever the tasks are that you're not opening yourself up to be asked to be on committees and stuff like that to expand your career. You're keeping yourself stifled because you're buried in admin work, or again, whatever it is. So,
whatever is easier for them to do themselves.
Yes, because we're taught, right? Like, pull up your big girl pants, take the next step forward. You can only depend on yourself. These are things we're taught as kids, right?
Right. And they actually stop you cold.
Yeah.
think, can I take a moment to give an idea or
I would
an
love that.
experience really?
Yeah.
And it's about shifting perspective, and it's one I use in my class. It's about shifting perspective from being inside yourself and looking out. Think of yourself as a caterpillar, and you're in the caterpillar body and you're wiggling around the ground. Maybe you're on a leaf and how does the world look to you? And that's one way. And then I'm not going to even really take time to say, Connie, do this with me. I'm just going to kind of paint the picture, but for people to do this on their own. And then once you have a feeling of that, now in a moment, in a flash, you've gone through the chrysalis. You don't even need the chrysalis. You're a butterfly. You've just like that. You've been taking a quantum leap. You're a butterfly. You're flying. You've got wings. You're above the plant. You're flying around. You're flitting around. You're seeing different things. You have a different perspective.
Yeah.
What does the world look like here? How does it feel? What could you see now that you couldn't see as a caterpillar? So the idea of this is, if you do that for yourself, you're bringing in a new way of seeing the world. You're bringing in a new way of seeing your position in the corporate pecking order. How are you on your team? What if everybody on the team learned to have these kinds of experiences, learn to have the ability to shift perspectives that quickly, to take the quantum leaps? Then what you have is really that energy of what I call co-creation amongst the team members, and innovation happens that goes off the charts.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing in not what's known, not what's already known, but you're leaping into some new uncharted territory that you get to explore and get to bring into form.
Yeah. It's the possibility of what could be, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
And
interesting.
then how to do it. And then how to do it. It's not just staying in the possibility, it's bringing it in.
Right. Well, and then figuring out a strategy. Oh,
Yes.
that's a great idea. Let's think about, you do the research, figure out, can technology handle that? Can that department support us? Right. Then you have to start action. See, again, it goes back to the action.
It goes back to action.
You know, what's fascinating, Laurie, and I know you work with corporate clients as well, right? You do?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. So it's funny because, again, I'm teaching sales, right? Like, talk about the most unspiritual thing, right, that you could talk about. And we think, and this is what's fascinating. I've had executives that, have hired me, and I'll work with their teams for 15 years, 10 years. Like, my clients are long-term clients. And the executives will come through, go, oh, I haven't been in your training. I want to come and hang out a little bit. I want to meet the new employees, whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, come and play. And they'll sit there, and some of them will say to me, that was profound. And I go, huh? What? And they say, when you started talking about energy, the energy exchange with your clients. And if you're bringing your baggage to work, your client is feeling that, and they're feeling something's off, they're going to hesitate and say, let me think about it, instead of making a decision. Like, that was really profound. And that happens in our lives. So in corporate, and this is the other thing I'll tell you. So, right, I'm in corporations, you're in corporations, lunchrooms, they all have lunchrooms. Well, they'll come in to the training room and say, hey, Con, can I eat in here? And I because I don't want to intrude, they give me some free time. And I go, sure, of course. And then they'll ask me questions like this, Laurie, I crack up. Did you watch The Secret? And what books are you reading about? Do you know who Wayne Dyer is? And I'm giggling to myself, thinking, I'm in a corporation and they're asking me about spiritual stuff, right? About energy and all of these things. It happens more and more frequently. So anybody, I know we're talking to business owners as well as corporate people. Don't be afraid. Everybody, the light is shining brighter and brighter, I feel, in the world. And we are more open to this woo, whatever you want to call it, right? The spirituality, woo, energy exchange, quantum physics, all of those things, universe, source. We're all open to it, and people are having these conversations more frequently. And the other thing, I'm curious, I'm finding it with younger people. The new employees are, obviously younger, being hired, and they love talking about this stuff. And they are so open to, how do you tap into that, Con? How do you feel that energy? What exercises do you do? Do you meditate? What meditations do you listen to? Are you finding that as well?
I do. And I'm not as into corporation and the work I do as you are, but even some of the younger people that are coming into my programs, I've been surprised actually by hearing, I need this. I need this, because people are feeling hungry for that moreness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That moreness. What a great way to put it. And it's funny because, my corporate folks listening, whoever you are, if you feel stuck and wanting more and thinking, I know there's got to be more, I recommend, and we're literally out of time. So I do recommend connecting with Laurie. So here's a couple of things, right? I get to be with Laurie a lot. We're networking. She and I do shows. We're just together a lot. So I'm very blessed to have her in my life with frequency, right? So here's the deal. I'm going to give you Laurie's website. Please check it out. Tremendous things noted there. Follow her and all of those things. Check out her podcast. Follow her podcast. One more time. What's a podcast?
It's Wisdom Talk Radio.
Wisdom Talk Radio. Check out my show with her. We had a great show. If I do say so myself, Laura.
I do too.
Self-promotion there, kids, right? But go to Laurie's website. It's thebacainstitute.com. If you have questions specifically for Laurie, you see how lovely and approachable she is. Email her at Laurie@thebacainstitute.com. Additionally, she is just so delightful. She has 2 free gifts for us today. One free gift is the PDF 7 Awareness Provoking Experiences, and it's a 7-day mini course for you, again, to whet your appetite and maybe get your juices flowing to start to shift into what is that more for you. And the last thing is she has a quiz link that I highly recommend everybody take. It's Quantum Connection Style Quiz, and the links will be in the show notes. I don't want you to worry about it, but seriously, if you have a question or you're curious, email Laurie so that or just do the free gifts and then email Laurie so that you can actually have a conversation one-on-one and see if she's a good fit for where you are in your life, for you to take those quantum leaps. We all deserve it. We all have it available to us. We just have to know how to tap. So Laurie might be the bridge of where you are and that more for you, whatever that is, right? And we all have different objectives in life. So please connect with Laurie, hang out with Laurie, download her free gifts, devour her stuff. I'm telling you, it will change your life. Any last words, Laurie, before we sign off?
Breathe. I want to say that not to you, but to the listeners, breathe, because that's how we that's how we do that exchange with the universe. And people don't do conscious breathing enough. They don't stop to say, let me appreciate that with this thing that's keeping me alive and that knows exactly what to do in my life.
Yeah. Do you know Christy Whitman, the Desire Factor? Yeah. She's become a friend. I just love her. And she's all about, like you were saying, the frequency. And her book is brilliant. And she takes it from one perspective. This quantum leap piece, again, it's frequency and energy and all of that, but that inner guidance is very tangible. I think it's a tangible concept that we can lean into and create action to create reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Perfectly said.
Yeah.
Connie, I love you so much. That's the other thing I want to say. I just love you. I love being with you. And I'm excited when I hear you talk about the people that you're working with. And yet, yes, you're bringing, like you said, it's the unsexy, unspiritual sales. But when we stop having those limiting thoughts about everything, then we get to be in that play in that expanded space. And that's where the miracles do happen. That's where the quantum leaps take place.
And here's the funny thing, Laura, right? It's sales, but you get more sales, you attract more clients using these tools. It is, and I tease when I say to my client, do this, right? Here's the task, right? But lean into it, feel it, visualize, right? All of those spiritual things, those tools that we've learned, and watch, and they'll come back saying, I signed another client. It was the easiest thing I've ever done. It's magic, but it's not magic, right? It's not. It's being present and feeling that other person and being
Mhm.
present with that other person and allowing that other person to share who they are and what they need and what their
Mm.
struggles are. And if
Mhm.
you're not the right fit, who can you share with them, right? It's
Right.
an abundant world. So don't go in, I have to make the sale because I have to pay my mortgage. That's the worst thing you can do. So
Exactly.
sales is energy, right? Sales is
Exactly.
money. Money is energy. I mean, it's the ripple
Mhm.
effect with everything we do. So yeah, sales is an we think it's an unsexy topic, but
Mhm.
really what we're talking about is behind every sale you make. It's this
Yes.
cohesiveness, right, of energy.
We're talking about life. We're
Yeah.
talking about life.
Yeah. And serving in that life
Absolutely.
with whatever your
Absolutely.
genius is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Um,
I love you.
mm.
There's so many aha moments for me, and I know for my listeners as well. So thank you so much, Laurie. Everybody, please check out. I have all her intel in the show notes. So please connect, follow, email, whatever feels comfortable for you right now. But I do think everybody needs more Laurie in their life. Also, I think you need more Connie in your life.
Me
So
too.
don't forget that. You, Laurie. Don't forget my all-star community. I'd love for you to come and play. The link is in the show notes. Email me if you have any questions. All my information is in the show notes. I'd love to connect and help you make more sales, make more money, grow your business wherever you are. That just happens to be my zone of genius. Laurie, as always, thank you so much. I love our conversations. I think they're valuable, and I think they're tangible for people to start to explore. Let me sit with that, feel it. What's my next step, right? Action, action, action is part of that equation. Thank you again.
Thank you, Connie.
And I hope you will join me weekly as we question and build and discover together that no matter where you are on this journey of change, my guests and I, we have you, and we really do want to help you move your needle so that you can make life just easy and graceful and filled with love and joy and all those wonderful vibrations that we should be feeling. Thank you for tuning in too. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I love that you join me weekly. I hope you continue to join me weekly. And my wish for you is to have an amazing week filled with magic by using the concepts that Laurie and I talked about today. You've got this. Create the magic. You are in control. Take the action needed. And I promise you, amazing things will happen. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you again, Laurie. And I'll see you next week.